everyone, welcome back to the CollabCast. I'm editor Katie Cusack here with editor David King and Jamel Mosely of Collective Effort, Power Breakfast,
eMedia,
DJ, everything.
Yep.
Anything you can think of, he's probably done it or been involved, basically, in the capital region. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on.
You have a wonderful smiling face.
I do?
Wow.
Oh, that's
nice.
very
What a-
I don't get compliments. That's
You don't get
no.
compliments?
That's
My wife
what-
tells me I have a resting bitch face. That's what she's always. Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
I think it's very inviting. You know, the eyes,
Yeah.
they
Oh,
They
slant.
twinkle.
Yeah, my daughter has that too. I see it all the time and think I gave that to her. Poor girl. But,
They're like smiling eyes. That's
No,
people
yeah, you
literally
have-
write
yeah.
songs about that.
You have eyes that are constantly smiling.
this is not where I thought we'd be going.
I'm told I have bedroom eyes. So-
Oh well,
Oh.
that's
And like,
Also
I think
valuable.
a teacher told me this when I was in like 8th grade or
Wow.
something like that. So,
What
all right, there we go. That's how we start.
And here we are.
yeah,
Welcome.
decent.
It's pretty
I-
solid.
So you were just honored by the Business Review as 40 under 40. Obviously you're ubiquitous in a lot of ways, but following you on social media and seeing folks who are also involved, it feels a lot to me like you're the glue. Obviously a lot more than that, but in some ways a glue in this community that has come together and is really making waves and getting attention. It's sort of amazing to see the amount of work you do in one day. So I'm wondering what it's like to. It feels to me in a lot of ways you must be carrying sort of quite a burden in some ways to keep this going. And
No, I don't necessarily feel burdened.
Yeah.
Because this is just my life. It's like I grew up in a place where family is very important. My mother, my aunts and uncles made sure that family is very important, and we're always doing something for each other, and we're always around each other. And you know, when one hand can't do something, you know, the other hand picks up. And I think that's how I operate a lot of times, and that's how my teams and my community operates. So like, I never feel like I'm in a deficit of anything. I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of explain this is without like really touching anybody the wrong way. Is I think I just have a way of dealing with things that's kind of unique, and I've had someone tell me that they're jealous of the way that I can handle pressure, and that they're like, well, you don't get sad about that? You don't get anxious about that? And it's just like, no. Like, I kind of found a way to take things as they are, and like understanding that life will throw you things. You either have time for something or you don't, and you do the best with what you got, you know, the best with what you have, and the best with the time you have, and the people you have, and the resources, and all that type of stuff. And, you know, if some shit goes down, you know, you have to, like, are you going to cry about it, or are you going to do something about it? You know, there's a really good quote, you know, about something like that. It was like, in my friend Jess, she posted something about this. It was, are you going to cry about it, or are you going to man up? And he's like, first of all, I'm going to do both. So, like, yeah, and sometimes it gets like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just feel like it's just the way I operate. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you're involved in so many groups that are doing constant, it seems like, important work. I mean, like, there's Youth FX. I'm like always catching you at those events. And then Power Breakfast obviously has had such an influence and seems to be growing each time
you
they
just
meet.
celebrated a big anniversary.
Right.
Yeah, 2 years. We've been running for 105 weeks straight, you know,
Amazing.
without missing a Tuesday.
That's excellent. Yeah,
It's-
without
it's
missing
really
one
wild.
is
Yeah,
pretty important.
It's really wild.
At what point did you decide to sort of like step in that way and be like, I'm going to be like have a heavy hand in these organizations and like this is so vital to the community? Like, when did you decide that this is going to be?
So the way, kind of, I would say, because I think Albany runs in, the Capital District and Capital Region in general kind of runs in these like different silos and like cliques, and like sometimes it's hard to get in these and stuff like that. But I would say the first point of contact I've had with like the greater professional world, and especially like the greater creative professional world, was when might have been like 8 years ago now, where we were opening up a studio, myself and actually this is the only reason I didn't move to New York City.
And you shared this story with me, and I wanted to bring it up, but it says a lot to me about, obviously you had your chance, you were set up to get out, and a lot of people would have taken it. But it also, but in some ways, I mean, you had a reason to stay. But I know how much Arbor Hill, the community, the work you've done, I mean, reflects how much you value family and the area. So this story to me says so much about who you are. And sorry. So go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I haven't heard it. I'm like, let me
So I had an internship down at a post-production studio in New York City, and I was going back and forth from here. I was working at like LaSalle School as an after-school counselor, but then I also like created this this program teaching kids hip hop writing and beat making, and tying that into like SAT words and stuff like that. It was really cool. But I was probably about a month away from saying, all right, I'm moving to New York City. Like it's just time. Because I was like a foot in there anyways. And then a month before, kind of like taking that step, my uncle brought me to this building. He was like, hey, check this out. This is your studio. Like, this is your studio. And I'm just like, okay. And I had to make up for the brunt of the work that went on in there, but it got me started into doing a lot of running my own multimedia studio in collaboration with my uncle. He's a contractor, Majestic, and they ended up having this Delaware Avenue Fest. It's like a Delaware Ave Arts Fest or something like that, and so we didn't have any signs up or anything like that. We had just moved in maybe a month or two before, and Tony Adesico and had set up a table with the Albany Barn in front of it, and I was just like, "Hey, this is our spot." Like, I'm trying to get out of the door, like, oh, and then they just move it a little bit to the side, but it just started this conversation. Then after that conversation, I started volunteering with the Albany Barn. Jeff Morrell ended up asking me to be on the board of directors, and then I started to get connected with just so many people around here. But the first step was volunteerism.
Yeah, just like dedicating your time and not really expecting anything in return. It's interesting.
And then I started to get jobs from people's companies on the board.
Right.
I started to get connected with the city and the mayors and things like that. So it was great.
Yeah, I remember being at a Power Breakfast, and you were telling people that you make a point to be at every event for 7 minutes or something like that. So how do you manage your time that way?
So once I started to go to these bigger events and things like that, things where politicians and the mayor would show up, I would see how they move. I'm like, yo, they weren't here but for 15 minutes. They got on the mic, they said what's up, and then they bounced, right? And I'm like, you can do that. You can show support at different things, especially for people you care about, or if you want to just grab the ear of someone really quickly. So that was the thing. I started to move like, you know, a politician in that way, but not like. Man, I mean, I really don't like what politics are, but that was one thing I picked up from seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, using that move in a more positive way.
Yeah, in a positive way.
In terms of like connecting with people when you can,
Exactly.
instead of saying like, especially the way that things operate around here, where it's like, I know this is happening in Albany, this is happening in Troy, this is happening in Schenectady, like not feeling like you have to choose one and like be there the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the great things about Power Breakfast, obviously, is that you're highlighting these places that you have, and it turns people on and gets them in the room that they might not otherwise be in. And I think that's a lot of what the collaborative wants to do in terms of ending sort of that sort of standoffishness and click, sort of, you know, everyone operating in cliques and not being willing to support each other.
Yeah.
But, you know, what you do not only gets people in the room, but it empowers them and gives them the knowledge they need to actually take advantage of just hearing some of the stories from Power Breakfast and people who go regularly. It's really impressive.
Yeah, Power Breakfast is all about, well, first we say our tagline is structure, accountability, and community. Structure is like kind of like the consistency of it. You know, we haven't missed a week in 105 weeks. Also, to be able to have a certain structure. You know, there's 45 minutes of someone doing this facilitated group discussion, and then we go into goals and intentions and accomplishments, and then we go and we celebrate people, but then also to be able to have people plug their events at the end, which is great. And then usually on Tuesdays, you'll see a spike in online engagement, and people are just plugging their events, and they're asking questions, and they're posting jobs and things like that. Someone was like posting, you know, apartments that they have up for rent, and they're like, anybody within this group, you know, you'll get $200 off. And it's like, yo, that speaks a lot to the trust that people have in the community that they've built.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of trust in that room and sort of like understanding.
It gets deep sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And just to have people sharing their goals and their like aspirations in terms of their like either like entrepreneurship, or business, creative goals, like artistic goals, or just like stuff that's happening in their lives. It's just very personal at the end of the day, but you don't realize it. Like it doesn't come across, I guess, that way, but then it ends up being, because you're really having to be, like you said, like the accountability is just like so important.
So the accountability part is that when we say goals at the end, we're going to say, all right, make sure that's a measurable goal.
Yeah.
And when someone says, I need to make my budget, someone will be like yelling out behind their
Like,
computer.
what have you
By
done?
when? You know, when are you going to do that? And then, you know, so that's the whole accountability part. You know, every once in a while I'll get a text message from someone saying, hey, how's that whatchamacallit going?
Yeah.
You know, that you said you were working on. Damn, I should be working on that. You know,
I just hear my mother's voice in my head.
And sometimes it's a year later. It's crazy. So I was going to do this photo project about a year ago, where I was having these problems with, you know, commitment, with saying this is a good photo. I'm going to edit this photo the way I want it edited, and then I'm going to print it out and I'm going to frame it. I'm going to do one of these a month. And I had something where like my car got broken into, and people stole a bunch of stuff, whatever. But someone hit me up like maybe like 6 or 7 months after that. And how's that photo project coming? And I was just like, you know, thanks for thinking about me, you know, at least, you know, and holding me accountable. But it'll get started again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like people becoming invested in each other's work too at the same time, and like having that.
And that's the community part, really.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how much you can talk about this, but yesterday, there was a lot of stuff in the news about locally, especially about the Showtime show you were involved in with Kirsten Gillibrand. Can you say anything? Could I?
Yeah. So did it air already?
I think they like put out a trailer or something. I just saw like tweets about it.
Yeah,
so
it's all over the place. About the story
but they're
that it was
calling
at
the
the.
Bradley like an undisclosed Troy location.
Hilarious.
It's like
Hilarious.
it's very clearly
Her
the
favorite
Bradley.
bar,
Yeah.
downtown bar. Yeah. Well, it was good. From what I understand and what they've shared is, I mean, they showed the people and they show. So it was the Jesus and Mero show, who
Yep.
they recently got a contract with Showtime, and they've been on Complex before that, and I think just kind of on their
Vice,
own.
too.
Oh yeah, Vice, and Vice as well, and then on their own before that. But they were just like really easy to work with. So I went on there just working as utility. So with someone who works utility on a shoot, the shoot was like 30 people, a 30-person
Wow.
crew. It was real.
Yeah, in that space is kind of tight. I feel like
Yeah.
just like hanging out in the Bradley.
Yeah. So it wasn't just the Bradley. We went around
Right,
a few
right.
places, so I won't. I guess I
Yeah.
can't disclose where all the places that we went to, but we went a few different places around Troy, and it's for a show where they're going to people's hometowns, and they're just kind of like showing kind of like what it is there. It's funny, they mentioned me on their podcast the week later, and they were like, there are black people in Troy. I think it was just so funny that there's just this I don't know, people just don't know like what goes on beyond, I don't know, Westchester.
Yeah.
From like
Yeah.
New York City.
Well, didn't they said something along the lines like Jamel, get on the train, or like quick escape?
Yeah. They thought it was like Get Out or something.
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. It was funny. I mean, those dudes are kind of like, I feel like I went to high school with them.
Yeah.
And exactly how they are on the show is how they are in real life.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's sort of funny because covering state politics for as long as I do, and I know how we feel about politicians and all, and I don't necessarily disagree at all, but there are some great people that come up from the city all the time who are legislators or staffers, and they are always surprised to see that there is more of this life here than they would have imagined, and not everything is a sandwich shop. There's actually variety and real food made by real people from who aren't just the
Yeah.
what that sort of white bread image that you might have of
Exactly.
upstate New York.
So I mean, that's what I say to people usually when they ask about hair, or when they have like gripes, and it's like, we just don't have the critical mass of a big city.
Right.
We don't have the luxury to be able to go 2 doors down and be like, this is all right, and then go another 2 doors down and be like, wow, I'm having the time of my life. It's like you have to be very intentional about how you spend your time and what you're going to seek out, because we have some really dope things that you can do here. And on a given Friday or Saturday night, I have too many things to do.
Right.
And that's not including, the things that I do. It's just like, there's so much going on if you know who
Where
to,
to
if you
look.
know where to look.
That's very true. Definitely. And it's just, I mean, like you said, it's all just very spaced out, where it's like, and with those groups where we're talking about, like this group is doing this all the time, this group's doing that all the time, and it's happening in these separate places, and it's like, they don't really intermingle as much as I guess they should. And so you see the same people, and it's like so important to try and get out of getting out of your comfort zone in your own community here is a pretty big deal.
But I mean, I've also heard the same thing about places like New York City
Oh,
and
well,
LA,
yeah.
where it's like, once you're in a specific kind of community or industry,
Right.
and they have those industry parties. My friend complains about this all the time. He's my friend Bob. He's an editor down in New York City for streetwear, and he's like, he's into streetwear and fashion industry, but once he goes to these parties, he's like, I'm seeing the same people at every party. I don't even want to go anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Jamel Mosely guy, I did a story about a few months ago, who was the creative director for Interscope and a few other places. He lives in Catskill now, and one of the most striking things he said to me was, moving up here, suddenly we're doing all these things. We're going to places like MPAC or Hudson Basilica or the Egg or whatever it is. Whereas in the city, it became this chore because we were either competing to go to all the events that everyone all had to go to, or we were just hiding at home because we were overwhelmed because it was just too much, and the art world was a little bit too heavy or repetitive. And so here there are more options, and you're not necessarily, certainly you could get weighed down by a clique or trying to be around the right people, but I do think it's sort of liberating in some ways that there's just so many places to be, and probably less judgment and competition.
There's always a new collective that's like popping up, I feel.
Yeah.
Every month or so. Well, probably not that frequently, but maybe it just seems like that to me because I'm like looking for them. But that's cool too, because people are seeing these gaps and filling them in, which is what I feel like a lot of what you do and all the different groups that you're working with. Like, you're working with people who are like, hey, like, I see a space for people, or like, I haven't found my space in this group, like, let's make it ourselves here. So it's just like just as important.
Can you tell us a little bit about Collective Effort and where things stand and what the future holds?
Yeah, so Collective Effort, what we do is, it kind of started as each of us working separately. I have this video project. I was like working with Puma. I was working with Under Armour, and I needed help. I would subcontract. My brother. I would subcontract Patrick Harris Jr., who is the president of Collective Effort, and vice versa. They bring me into projects. So that was kind of one avenue. The whole content team thing. The other thing was like marketing, and it's really hard to be a one-person marketing team. You need like these different ideas and stuff like that. So that's like another avenue. The third avenue was, what happened as a result of Power Breakfast, where we created this community, right, that exists physically, but then also digitally. And people create digital communities every day, but to have an engaged digital community is hard. So different organizations, institutions like city governments and stuff like that started to reach out to us and saying, hey, can you create a Power Breakfast for us? Like, yeah.
Sure.
We have this company here. We do digital community building.
Cool. Yeah.
And then, so that's the third avenue. And then the fourth is we're going to be opening up co-working spaces for creatives, and we're going to be opening up production studios, and we have a lot of really cool collaborations coming up. And a lot of this is about, and also with that digital community building, is we want to be able to make sure that, kind of the same way with Power Breakfast, is that people have access, resources, and a voice.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, these organizations and institutions are like, we don't know how to talk to our constituents, and we have all of these ideas and stuff like that, and we want to make this city this. It's like, all right, what do your people think, and like, how do you get in touch with them? So we're working on some really cool projects with Schenectady and Troy right now, and it's looking good. I think even just the power of walking in a meeting with 4 people rather than just 1 people has been like immediately impactful for us.
Yeah, definitely. To have people to like bounce off ideas and like have those different perspectives of like people with a vision and people with a plan. It's like different ways of thinking. Yeah.
And all of us, like, we have a PhD of sociology on our team. We have content makers. We have project managers. We have civil engineers and educators, and all. We have a chef, all within our team of 8 people, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It really works out really well.
So many more opportunities to do different things
Yeah.
because, and then, you know, everybody has their own network and their own connections and like their own communities to draw from too, which is also valuable. Perfect.
So, if folks want to get Power Breakfast, obviously it's every Tuesday. Or it's not every Tuesday, sorry. Yeah, every Tuesday.
It is
It's every single Tuesday.
Yeah, every single Tuesday.
But the location changes.
Right.
Location changes every single Tuesday.
And when's the next one? Or I mean, where is the next one?
So the next one, you guys will be seeing this on Monday, right? The next one is going to be at the Albany Barn.
Oh, cool.
Next week is the last Tuesday of the month, right?
Yes.
So every last
Yeah.
Tuesday of the month, we worked it out to where every last Tuesday of the month is going to be at the Albany Barn, and every first Tuesday of the month, I believe, is going to be at Ignite U in Troy.
Nice.
So those are the only 2 spaces that are kind of like, you know, going to be
Consistent, yeah.
consistent. Yeah.
Sure.
And how should people reach out about Collective Effort if they want your services?
So if
or-
you want to reach out to Collective Effort, you go to Collective Effort. That's with 1 E in the middle. The shared. It's a
Shared
collective
E.
So go collectiveeffort.co. We're working on our site, but you should still be able to get in touch with us through it.
Great.
Very
And
cool.
social media, obviously, as well, probably.
And social media, Power Breakfast has a nice community on. It's called Power Breakfast Club on Facebook and Instagram. Collective Effort on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Jamel Mosely and eMedia and Intel Hayesfield. Find out
so
where I'm
many
DJing.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was a
Yeah.
real pleasure, and I'm
Absolutely.
sure we'll be talking to you soon. And you'll be in one of our upcoming issues pretty soon, too.
What?
But we'll keep
Yeah.
that on the DL for now.
For now.